Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on the line as he does every week is the one and only real live flesh and blood movie critic, Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Not much. I mean, I continue to appreciate that you reference me as an actual person, not some AI voice that you got from a 5-cent store.
If I could find an AI voice to go along with me that just is completely with me on everything, you know what? I might fire your ass. Yes, Last Jedi was awful.
Movies. Yes,
Movie. B-sox is the greatest.
Iowa would perish without you.
Thank God you're here.
Idaho would perish without you.
Oh, perfect. All right. So as for actual movies this week, we've got a couple of them. We haven't seen them yet. There's probably going to be some time travel, possibly Priscilla, possibly Quiz Lady. Two very different movies. And Priscilla, you were saying this is one that might be one that's going to go after awards, right?
Oh, I know it's going after them. It'll just be interesting to see what it gets, because this is Sofia Coppola's sort of a reaction to Elvis, I would think, because obviously, you know, Baz Luhrmann did the Elvis biopic. It did numbers. It was popular. That definitely went up for awards. So Sofia Coppola is writing and directing a movie based off of Priscilla Presley's memoir, Elvis and Me. And, you know, this is apparently the same story, or a similar story, but told from Priscilla's point of view. And this seems like one of the front runners for the moment, because for awards glory this year, because it was, you know, they brought it to the festivals, and some awards and accolades were brought in, and they're starting to screen it now for critics.
And the things and the
buzz,
whatever.
Getting that buzz up and running, so that way, you know, you can see oh no, you won't see any more trailers for it. You'll probably see TV commercials because it opens this weekend. But yeah,
all right.
Awards ads with like everybody saying yes, fierce, defiant, or whatever.
Fierce, defiant.
I'm not minimizing the film. It's just those are like big, catchy words that you would want to use. Like I could see people saying like a fierce portrayal of the American saga we never knew, and that's not an actual pull quote. I have to see the movie before I can give you anything for that, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll see it. Maybe we won't. We'll see what happens. The other one, Quiz Lady. This has a pretty good cast, and it's supposed to be funny, I believe.
That's comedy for you. Comedy usually is...
that's comedy, everybody.
Yeah, comedy. Yeah, you tell a joke, and then people laugh, and then it's like, I heard that one before, but nah. But yeah, this is, I mean, you just going off a cast list alone, Awkwafina plays Anne and Sandra Oh plays Jenny. This is a pair of sisters. And their mother has gambling debts. Apparently, Awkwafina's dog gets kidnapped.
Oh, wow.
Which leads to a road trip to a game show. And then
Makes sense.
and then you've got Jason Schwartzman, Holland Taylor, Tony Hale, Will Ferrell, and it looks like this may be one of Paul Rubens' final performances.
Oh, okay.
Yep. According to the LA Times, Paul Rubens makes final film appearance in comedy, Awkwafina Sandra Oh comedy, Quiz Lady.
Oh, wow. Hopefully we can get a review of one of these. I'm not gonna hold a gun to your head for it. So,
but at the same time, Quiz Lady will be streaming on Hulu, so it'll be pretty easy for people to get at.
Yes.
Whereas Priscilla is going to theaters. I believe it is a wide release. I don't think it's a New York, LA scenario. I think it's just everywhere.
It's just everywhere, everyone.
Biopics are in this year. They're so hot. Handful. Bringing it back to Will Ferrell right there.
Oh, God, that's funny. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com on the line with me right now as we talk about the movies and the such. So we'll see what happens with time travel. As for topics this week, there is a lot to get to. Some interesting news items, some stuff that we have seen lots of stories about, but I'm not sure we have the whole picture of it yet, and some cool trailers. Where do you want to start? Like, what's the hot button one for you this week?
So I guess we'll just start with the HBO stuff.
Okay.
So a couple days ago, I didn't even know about this until this morning. A couple days ago, or it might have even been yesterday, Rolling Stone did a story where they basically went into, I think they found some leaked emails and texts, and Casey Bloys, the CEO of HBO, had allegedly sort of trolled TV critics in their responses to HBO product with a fake Twitter account.
Uh-oh.
And that came up today during HBO was doing a big presentation for, what 2024 is going to look like for the network. And he just flat out admitted, yeah, I did that. It was a very, very dumb move. And he also kind of admitted what he had learned from making that very move. And, there's a whole bunch of stories that, Rolling Stone did a really huge piece about it. They seem to be really breaking news this year. And I recommend people read that to sort of get the full story. But yeah, wow. Like the words he had used from what I read was he wanted to see if someone was going to go on a mission, quote unquote, to sort of, to sort of troll a critic who had seen the first episode of Perry Mason and was like, can we please stop using war as like the ultimate trauma for men?
Oh, boy.
Well, yeah, in between new trailers for House of the Dragon Season 2 and notifying fans that White Lotus Season 3 and the It prequel Welcome to Derry have both been moved to 2025 instead of their planned 2024 release dates because of the actor strike. That happened.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a big morning for HBO.
Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com on the line with me right now. Okay, so that's the morning that HBO had. And just to be forthcoming with everybody, we were recording right now at about 12:45 on Thursday. That's Central Time for those of you playing along at home as we make our way through this. Another big story that's kind of making its rounds, and this is one that it's one of those ones you got to try and figure out what's real, what's fake, and what's being blown out of proportion. But Marvel, if you go by what the interwebs are saying, they're in panic crisis mode this week.
Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. I am so glad you reminded me of that because that's another what's going on here story.
And let me preface it by saying this. When I first saw this, it was from it was stumbling across a YouTube video from people talking about it or, like a TikTok or something. But now you've got mainstream news outlets reporting this stuff that there are major problems in the Marvel MCU right now. And there's a lot of things that they don't know what to do with.
If I am not mistaken, this all stemmed from a report from the Hollywood Reporter, I want to say, where there was just this, I remember, I now that you've mentioned it, I remember sitting, doing my work as one usually does, and then looking at work chat, and they're like, yeah, this giant story just dropped, and oh boy. And there was a lot of different stories, like apparently, I think these are the actual words that someone said that we used. I'm going to look for this just to be sure. I don't want you to waste a bleep. But, oh yeah, as far as Kang is concerned, quote, Marvel is truly with the whole Kang angle, and they haven't had the opportunity to rewrite until very recently because of the WGA strike. But I don't see a path to how they move forward with him.
Yeah, that you got to think he's done, right?
Potentially. I mean, I would be very interested to see. Apparently, it sounds like he's done. This is according to, quote, one top deal maker who has seen the final Loki episode. So, who knows who this person is, how close they are to the whole situation. But I think there was like a whole meeting there was a whole gathering in Palm Springs where Marvel execs met together and were trying to go through backup plans and pivots, mentioning Doctor Doom as a potential option. On top of that, they also apparently had mentioned that She-Hulk had problems due to undercooked scripts.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, like there's a lot in this. Well, it's a variety story. I'm sorry, it's not Hollywood Reporter. It's a variety story.
Yeah, but there's
it's like a lot.
Let's face it, Marvel hasn't had a good run in the last 3 years.
Well, someone actually did put up the graph, and they were trying to link it to Martin Scorsese's infamous comments where he's like, "This isn't cinema. This is more like a theme park attraction the way they're treating it."
Okay.
And someone had plotted those remarks right before the pandemic and after Avengers Endgame. And they're saying, oh, this is totally, Marty Rectum. And it's like, no, that's just a coincidence that happened then. But there is a downturn, And part of it was early pandemic box office, but the other part of it was it is literally trending downward
Yeah.
in the box office grosses. Like, you have some blips, like Guardians 3 was like went back up after a couple of downward trending grosses before that. And they're even looking at the early numbers for the Marvels opening, and they're like, yeah, it's more than expected, but it's like, it's a good percentage off from where Captain Marvel opened
Yeah.
a couple years back.
I think it goes back to a couple things. One, we talk about it a lot with the pro wrestling stuff, but it's how can I miss you if you never go away? But the other part of it is, I mean, you look at and again, this part is subject to people's opinion, but I would say that since Avengers Endgame, I would say the majority of, and there have been, highlights in there, don't get me wrong, but the majority of what they've put out has not been as well liked as what came before Avengers Endgame, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, there needed to be a break.
Yeah.
There needed to be a plan where, okay, you keep the wheels turning, but you do one-offs. Like, maybe you still go with Loki, you still go with maybe a WandaVision. Like, you go with these one-off ideas that could lead to other things, but don't necessarily need to keep the machine running.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily need to, like, I'm failing with words right now, but it's something that you can keep the engine warm, but doesn't necessarily need to be like phase 4, phase 5.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. It's like, okay, you got a WandaVision, you got a Loki, you do like a couple series, a couple movies, and they're floaters to see what people latch onto. So then you can say, okay, we're going to plan the next 20 years around the next big phase around this.
Yeah. In general with this stuff, though, I think, I mean, we could talk about this for an hour. We're not going to solve this in 10 minutes.
No, and I would love to talk about this for an hour, honestly. This is what gets me excited again about this. If anyone else is interested in learning more about this, I'm sorry to step on you here, but I want to recommend a book that I have in my possession right now that I have in my to-read pile. MCU: The Reign of Marvel Studios. This is not an ad by any chance, but I did get an advanced copy from the publisher that I still have yet to read, but I've thumbed through it, and there's interesting stories in here.
Oh, I have no doubt. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com on the line with me right now. We'll for sure be talking more about this Marvel stuff as it keeps coming out. Real quick, since you brought it up, I do want to bring up the South Park Into the Pandaverse episode, movie type thing. It is wonderful.
Yeah, the streaming event.
That's what it's called.
Which is apparently, that might have been their technicality for running the special, because from what I understand, there's still a legal battle going on between Paramount and Warner Brothers in terms of like the streaming rights and what have you for South Park, which, if you ever want to go into the history for why that seems so weird, I wrote a short story about it a while back, but I think I'm going to ask them if I can expand it. There was like a whole bunch of rights that traded hands between Warner Brothers and Paramount, and South Park was one of the things that got involved.
Oh boy.
But yeah, so from my understanding, they're calling it a streaming event, so that way they can actually run it versus like, a movie or a show.
It's really good. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I'm excited to watch it because I saw a clip. And I saw a clip of it where it's basically Cartman dressed as it's like his nightmare. And Cartman is dressed as like various Disney executive figures saying things.
What her answer to everything in the series is, put a chick in it, make her gay.
Well, I mean, I was going to stay away from that, but okay, if you want to go top button.
That's the line from the show.
Oh, I know it is. But at the same time, I'd like to go to Disney events. I'd like to cover Disney things. But yeah, I mean, that is what South Park did. South Park basically lambasted Disney management. Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy were both brought in for that whole thing, because the whole Pandaverse story is the kids from South Park are being replaced by diverse leads. So depending on where you sit on that debacle or that argument, you're either going to be very happy, very upset, or somewhere in the middle.
It's also the other one they're trying to is the multiverse thing.
Oh yeah, the multiverse is very easy to jump into as well.
So
that's definitely something that feels like a massive trend that everyone's really locking into.
So, anyways, it's just I had fun with it this weekend. I'll put it that way. I had some good laughs. So
I'm excited to watch it because again, Cartman's a jerk. So you can get away with, you can really stretch what he does.
Oh yeah.
And jerk is putting it mildly and for radio. But Cartman, you can get away with so much with that character because he's a jerk. And I remember back in, I think it was around the beginning of South Park's run, and back when News Radio was still on, I don't know how I remember this. Entertainment Weekly had a story about that where it's like, yeah, these characters are jerks, because they were talking about Phil Hartman's character on News Radio. And it's like, these characters are jerks, and here's why people can, you can push those characters.
Yeah. What do you think ends first, Simpsons or South Park?
South Park.
Okay. There you go. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com. No, there's no explanation. You get that.
I think that South Park pushes the boundaries more, and it's easier to exhaust that versus Simpsons. You don't tell me what I do.
Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com.
I love you.
Just to wrap up a couple things, we got a couple good trailers out this week. Planet of the Apes, we got a new movie about that, and The Fall Guy. Start real quick with The Fall Guy. How did you describe it? It was like the Nice Guys and what?
This is the Nice Guys / Drive sequel that we never got, and so richly deserved, because Ryan Gosling is playing a stunt performer again, and he's roped into a movie with his ex-girlfriend directing, played by Emily Blunt, and then the star of the movie disappears, and he gets roped into a mystery involving that whole shenanigan. And the one part of the trailer that reminds me so much of The Nice Guys is he's like on some sort of ledge, and he's looking down at somewhere, and he's like, no, too high to jump. No, gotta go down the stairs. And then all of a sudden bullets explode around him. He's like, no, gotta jump.
It's like that line from Nice Guys. Nope, that's a lot of blood.
Yeah, like it is so much playing towards Ryan Gosling's ability to self-deprecate himself, but also look cool in any situation. It's like 1 minute he's fighting.
He's really
people
enjoyable.
Off. Oh yeah, like at one point in this trailer, he's fighting people off with champagne bottles, and then you hear him describing it to Emily Blunt. He's like, I had to do some Jason Bourne.
It's so good. So that looks like it'll be a lot of fun. And then the big one that came out, The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, right?
Oh yes. And high marks for getting the title right.
There's about 15 of those. I never know which one we're at,
10, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think,
again, that's why I give you credit for that, because there's so many. It's like Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, War for the Dawn, Rise.
I think the thing that's always confusing about this to me is is this a remake? Is it a retelling? What's going on with this? And I know this conversation's been had with people about this movie, but I'm always confused about if this is just a complete remake or what, That
is a complicated subject to approach, just because of the fact that you had the classic run of movies, and then you had the more modern trilogy starting with Rise. And then, Rise, Dawn, War was a trilogy. Kingdom is connected to that trilogy, but it's several generations in the future. In fact, I thought I had read somewhere that it's like a couple hundred years past War for the Planet of the Apes. And we're going to be seeing a clash in the world of apes. We're going to see humans sort of even further in the minority, and how those two worlds sort of interact, as well as just the apes there is now a tyrant king in the ape kingdom, Proximus Caesar, played by Kevin Durant, who, if anybody watched The Strain, he was Fett, the really cool exterminator. But if you look him, he's also one of the Tremor brothers in Smokin' Aces. Like, you look this dude up, you'll know him by face alone. But he's playing the king of the apes, and you've got Owen Teague playing Noah, I think is his name. He's the new young ape that we're going to be following.
Awesome. Can't wait. All right. We will cut it there for now. We'll do some time traveling, possibly. This may end. I don't know.
Wait a minute.
What?
Wait a minute. something just came up as we're recording. That whole story about the Blade draft,
Yeah.
where she's like the fourth. One of the writers that worked on a draft, Michael Starbury is his name. This is what he had to say about it. I worked on a draft of this before the strike. Never saw a version where Blade was fourth lead, or it was, quote, narrative led by a woman and filled with life lessons, end quote. But I suppose a lot could have happened since I had anything to do with it. He was in 99% of the scripts I was a part of. So more fun on that front.
Okay.
Again, it's going to be interesting to watch this in real time.
Real quick, we should have brought this up a little bit earlier, but Matthew Perry passed away this past weekend as well. We didn't get a chance to talk about that.
No, we did not. And I have never been a huge fan of Friends. I've been okay with it, but I've never been a rabid fan.
No,
I've always been of the mind that if you cut half of the cast, you have a great show. And the half of the cast that I've always loved was Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
And if there was ever a Friend that I thought was my favorite, it was Chandler, because that was the one that I felt that level of sarcasm and that viewpoint on life. Like, he was the most identifiable. And then to see Matthew Perry do things like The Whole Nine Yards was also fantastic, because him and Bruce Willis in that movie are magic together.
Do you think, I know he had some substance abuse stuff. I had heard when he was younger, when he was starting to get out of Friends going into movies, that someone compared him to a young Tom Hanks. Do you think he could have gotten to that level?
He might have. You know what? I'm not surprised by that, and I would have loved to have seen someone really push him into that. I mean, besides Friends, the big projects that people mostly remember him from are like I think he was a guest star on The West Wing. He did a lot of stuff with Aaron Sorkin. Like, he was a guest star on The West Wing. There was there was a one-season run of a show he did called Studio 60, where it was like 30 Rock, but make it drama.
Yeah.
And I think I would have loved to have seen someone push him into that. Like, you get a Christopher Nolan or someone who like loves or maybe a Quentin Tarantino who loves doing that with people's careers and just push them into that direction. Or even if you got him to pair up with someone like Rian Johnson and really like hone in on that comedy and go Dreyer and Archer, and like, I would have loved to have seen him in like a Knives Out sequel.
And I'm not trying to take away from the man while, he passed away this week. It's just, it's an interesting conversation to have.
Well, I don't think you're taking away from him. It's unfortunate that he never really got that sort of career track, but I would agree with you. I would agree with that assessment. I mean, he was a very talented man, and he had clearly, he was open with his demons, and, he would make missteps here and there, like the whole Keanu Reeves thing. But the quote that struck me the most after he had passed was, there was this whole thing where he was talking about, people are going to probably remember me most for Friends, and I don't really want that. I want people to sort of remember what I was trying to do for people with substance abuse.
Yeah.
And opening this clinic and funding this and trying to be the person who's like, I've been through that, I will help you. And like, even going to his people were going to his TikTok, and just days before he had passed, he did a new video promoting his book. And it was one of those things that just seemed very profound, and sort of, it made you kind of sad afterwards.
You wish you got more with him.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, the dude was clearly talented. And I mean, the whole cast of Friends was talented. I'm speaking about character-wise.
Yeah.
I would cut it, but cast-wise, you really had a murderer's row there. You had a roster of actors that were just ready to go, and they did. And that, to their credit, that whole lineup is probably why that show lasted as long as it did, why it became as popular as it did. You had these people that were on the top of their game with delivery and with charisma, that just everyone on that list is a legend in some sort of way.
All right. To Matthew Perry, we wish you nothing but the best in the great beyond. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joins me every week on the show. There may be some time travel. We'll see what happens here in the next few seconds. It could end. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, yeah. I mean, did we talk about Five Nights at Freddy's?
No, we didn't.
Okay, we could save that for the time travel if you want.
It don't matter. What do you want to do? You want to talk about it now? You want to?
No, let's just go now.
It was
That way
it was
we
a false
always have
finish,
something to
everybody.
talk about.
False finish, kind of like in the world of
Look,
wrestling.
time travel is not an exact science.
No, it is not.
Except for when it is.
All right, real quick. Five Nights at Freddy's. What do we got? Good? Bad?
I think it's pretty solid.
Really?
This movie was getting roasted by critics, and I was really, I'm surprised because of the fact that this is a good gateway horror for kids. And the basic gist is, if you're familiar with the game, stop me if you heard this one. Young man played by Josh Hutcherson is hired to guard a defunct Chuck E. Cheese style pizzeria, and something may be lurking under the surface there. Some stuff involving dream theory and killer animatronics, and cameos by YouTubers that are very big on the scene involving this game.
So you liked it was better than you thought it would be, huh?
Well, it was based on the critical roasting that it was getting. It is a solid it's a solid base hit. Like, I think I kind of wish it went a little harder. I'm not as up on the lore, so I'll admit I was there's things in there that I was questioning that might be better explained if I was a fan of the game.
Okay.
Like, not that I didn't like it, but I just haven't played them. But even with that in mind, like, when you go out of your way to get Jim Henson's Creature Shop to build you suits like that, and you go out of your way to go as dark and as grim in this as you possibly can with a movie that's supposed to be for tweens and teens, I tip my hat to Emma Tammy and her crew. Because, again, this thing was in development hell for about a decade or so.
Yeah.
And this movie came out of it. It's like, yes, I would be excited to see you possibly do another one and have it right front, like you're kicked into gear day one, instead of, this is what basically resulted from a labored development process. Like, okay, but when you're like firing on all cylinders, what do you bring me? And already in about a week of release, it's at about $150 million.
Yeah, about a $20 million budget. That's okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much the marketing budget was, but since this is Blumhouse, I'm going to guess it wasn't extravagant because, again, Jason Blum and the Blumhouse crew are very focused on their budgets and their spending. And to that point, just another quick thing, if anybody is a fan of Blumhouse and Jason Blum, watch his Shark Tank episode from last week, because he was on Shark Tank for Halloween. And it was really cool to learn a little more about the dude, but also to get into his mindset as you watch him making deals. And it's like, I want to see more Jason Blum on there. And if they want to just make him a Halloween tradition, sure, I would love that. But if they want to get him on for outside of Halloween, I would love that too, because Blumhouse isn't just horror.
All right, well, let's
make this happen.
All right, well, we're going to attempt that time travel one more time. We're going to get that lawnmower engine running this time.
Always the lawnmower engine.
Oh, God. All right, we'll see what happens and stuff. Time travel, engage. Time travel complete, apparently.
That was actually a really good time travel sound.
I was sitting there trying to think. I was like, what kind of sound am I going to have to make here? Anyways, we're back. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joining me to talk about some movies. And time travel kind of worked this week. It kind of didn't, right?
Yeah, it kind of did, kind of didn't, because just I have enough work that it's like I can't really split focus between a movie and even I blame the ADHD personally. That is just when I'm watching a movie and I know I'm gonna be talking about it. I want to actually sit and watch the movie and be able to put the whole thing in. Even when I'm watching things in my spare time, it's like my wife can be watching it and like play solitaire on her phone, and I'm like, how do you do that?
It is kind of amazing. Like I'll thumb through my phone while I'm watching something. Both my wife and I. It's like, how much of the show are we actually watching here? But anyways, that's neither here or there. We're going to get to Loki here in a second because we both watched that. But probably the bigger of the movies that is coming out this weekend Well, one's going to have the Oscar it is Oscar, right?
Yeah, Priscilla's going to be.
Yeah,
that's going to definitely be gunning for Oscars.
The fun one though is Quiz Lady, right?
Yeah, and high marks on getting the name right.
Yay! All right, so this is Will Ferrell, Sandra Oh, and a really great cast. There's some Aquafina. There's some shenanigans that are happening in this. What's the basic layout of this thing?
So Aquafina and Sandra Oh are sisters, and they've kind of been estranged for a little while, but they reunite when their mother's nursing home calls them and tells them that their mother's run away.
Oh, God.
And apparently there's a good reason for that, because she's a compulsive gambler and she is in big with the mob.
Oh.
So now these two sisters that are reunited are going to go on a road trip because Sandra Oh's character wants to get Aquafina's character on this show, Can't Stop the Quiz, which is like a mix of Jeopardy and other quiz shows. And she's like a fanatic. She knows all the answers. She's even gone viral for a clip of, sitting at home rattling off all these answers. And her sister's like, okay, I'm taking it to my hands. Like, Sandra Oh's the wild, impulsive sister, and Aquafina's a CPA. She's very straight-laced. So crazy free spirit sister has to get her straight-laced, boring sister to do something cool with her life.
And the fact that they made Will Ferrell the game show host is brilliant.
Yeah, we were talking about that off air, and I was just thinking about it. It's like, wait a minute. I've been watching a lot of Celebrity Jeopardy lately, and this just works perfectly. Although he's actually a nice host from what I've seen. He's a nice host on this versus his wonderful Alex Trebek.
Oh, boy. And this is Paul Rubin's final movie, right?
Yes, he has a cameo in here somewhere.
So, all right. Well, Quiz Lady looks good this weekend. Should be a lot of fun. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com on the line with me. Maybe we could dive a little bit more into it next week. But we're going to skip Priscilla for now, and we're going to go right to Loki because that's Marvel stuff that's actually good.
Well, let's reframe that, because we're saying it's actually good with Marvel. That's not reflecting on the quality of anything else we talked about this week. We're just solely talking about Marvel right there. Although, if you folks time traveled with us, you have heard that conversation already.
Yes.
And yeah.
Basically, it kind of feels like Marvel's up creek without a paddle, right?
I don't know specifically about that. I think they're at a crisis point right now, or a nexus event, if you want to use the Loki term. I think they're at a pivot point right now. And how they handle it will be what ultimately decides if they're boned or not.
Is it because they didn't have that leading cast, like, going into the next phase?
I mean, that's something that you could definitely question, because of the fact that another thing that allegedly came out of that report was that Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson were being considered they were considering asking them to come back.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Allegedly they were considering backing up the dump truck and getting the gang back together.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like it seems like you had characters people liked but not leaders. That makes sense?
I guess. Yeah. Like you didn't have another Iron Man, or like you didn't have like another core Avengers team.
Yeah.
Which is also why, if you've seen some of the commercials for the Marvels lately, they're really hyping up the whole, we've got an Avenger back with us, because technically Captain Marvel's an Avenger.
Boy, there's been some reports that there's some leaks about that movie. And
go
ahead. Do you have more on it?
I'm wondering if that's not only why it was they only showed footage to people that are doing the junket, apparently. Like, they did not show the whole movie. They showed footage, and they've done that before. I mean, there's been whole junkets where there's been Star Wars and Marvel junkets where, like, they haven't even seen the movie and they go do a junket.
Yeah.
Like, the whole interview situation with these sorts of movies could get pretty weird because of the cloud of secrecy. But that might also be why the movies, it looks like it's going to be one of the shorter Marvel movies. Like, I think they said it's going to be under 2 hours, like hour 46.
Yeah, if you go by what the interwebs say and the leaks and all that, this could be a train wreck.
Could be. I mean, we'll see. Ultimately, the finished movie will be out next week, and I'm going to have to slot that in somewhere so I can talk to that. But, yeah.
Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com on the line with me right now. All right, so getting back to Loki, we had episode 5 last night. of the second season. That's leading into the second season finale next week. Thoughts?
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, man. This is, I really like the fact that they took time to sort of do a bottle episode in a sense, because we're very much focusing on why Loki's doing what he's doing and the lives of these people outside of the TVA. And I really like that about this week. It's still reminding me very much of peak Doctor Who, and Tom Hiddleston's almost like a cross between David Tennant and Matt Smith's Doctors. And just the way that the show is written and paced and the stakes that are in there is very, very pleasing.
Yeah. No, the Doctor Who comparison to this is very apt. Very good.
Like modern Who at its finest. And just they set thresholds, they cross them, and then it's just all the more exciting to watch what happens next.
Yeah, it did seem like just an episode to set up that he doesn't want to be alone, right?
Yeah, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I really liked that aspect of it. I liked seeing Loki come around to what he really cares about. And just the way that this character has changed from seeing him in the MCU to watching him in Loki has been an absolute treat, just because of what's happened and how he's evolved and how he's branched out.
It would be interesting. I think it would ruin the character, because I think that it's a big part of him, of his mom being dead and not being able to see him now, but her getting to see him and be proud of him like this.
Yeah. Like, if there was some sort of way that they could write that in, like, I don't know how they would be able to do that, but yeah, I would love to see that.
But I mean, I almost think that would ruin, not ruin the character, but it would hurt it, because I think that is part of him, of not being, of being disappointed in himself for those things,
Well, it also depends on how they end this whole arc in general. And I'm not just talking about season 2, I'm talking about Loki itself, because the way that Loki was set up in the beginning was, this is Loki from the alternate timeline from Endgame. He's just, plucked out of there, and this is a different Loki than what we've seen in the movies, and this is him doing his thing. How does this end for him? Like, do he and the other TVA variants get to just stay in the TVA because it's timeless and they, go on missions? Or does this have to eventually disappear? Like, the lore is going to have to answer this.
Yeah.
And eventually in time.
You know what I have missed, though? And we got a little bit of it in the first couple episodes. You know what I miss? What? I like when Loki is a villain, but for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I
mean, obviously he's a villainous character, and that's what made him so popular.
I love the scene when he traced down the one guy and, like, the shadows grabbed him and stuff, because it's like, oh, well, you're really messing with a villain here,
Oh, yeah. The whole when he's chasing down Brad in 70s London.
I really, really enjoyed that and thought it was cool. All right, well, that leads us to, I really don't know what's going to happen and how they're going to wrap this up. Usually there's some kind of, theory or whatever, but I really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm there with you. Like, now he's learned to control time slipping. What's next?
Yeah.
Where does he go? What does he do?
I don't know. It could be weird. Did they do any reshoots with this?
Apparently, no.
Wow.
Apparently,
okay.
This was one of because of the writer's strike and the actor strike. This was one of the first, I think, or one of the few Marvel projects that they said, yeah, we did no reshoots on this.
See, and that leads me to believe that they're not going to completely kill off Kang in this one.
We're going to go back to that report now, because apparently they're saying, like, I don't know if we mentioned this previously, but they said, like, they were just getting into rewrite mode right now.
Yeah.
So he'll probably pop up at the end, and there might be like a tease of some sort, but I have a feeling that it's going to end up, it'll leave on some sort of cliffhanger, and they'll need to write themselves out of that.
All right, we'll leave it there for this week. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joins me every week to talk about movies and entertainment and such. Mike, you have yourself a good weekend.
You too, and catch us here next week on the Marvel Cast, where we're going to take apart the Marvel Cinematic Universe and see if we can build it into a 57 Corvette.
Oh, God.
Loki Green 57 Corvette.